Emmy-nominated American Morning. CNN, weekdays 6 Eastern.
The Coast Guard apparently approved 74 exemptions allowing BP to use the chemicals during a 7-week span, and that was after the EPA said that the chemicals had to be used sparingly. BP admits pouring 1.8 million gallons of dispersant into the ocean, and it's a number that's being disputed by our next guest, Congressman Ed Markey of Massachusetts, who said that what BP has done amounts to a carpet bombing of the Gulf. Thanks for joining us this morning, Congressman.
Thank you for having me on.
You know, and even when we were down there back on day 37, all of us were raising questions about just how much they knew about the effect and the impact of these dispersants. Now we're 1.8 million gallons. That's what they're saying at this point. It could be far more. And you likened it to carpet bombing. But the stuff was approved by the EPA. They said it was okay to use. What are your biggest concerns about it?
Well, the EPA actually said that dispersants, these chemicals, should be used when spraying the surface of the ocean only in rare instances. What it turns out happened is that BP, for all intents and purposes, sprayed just about every single day. And on some days, they did so in quantities which were far in excess of anything that reports that they were giving to the Coast Guard indicated that they were using.
Right. And I mean, I understand what you're saying, that there are concerns, and there were concerns at the time. A lot of people were asking, do we know the impact of using all of these dispersants? It's never been used in this quantity before. We've never, we have no real testing on the long-term impact, but it was deemed by the EPA as well as others that this was the best thing going. I mean, there were many other lists and lists of other possible dispersants. They determined the Corexit worked the best with the least amount of harm, and they knew they were using it in huge quantities because they'd never seen oil spilled in these types of quantities.
Well, the EPA, in fact, was concerned about the impact that this could have upon workers. They were concerned about the impact that these chemicals could have upon marine life in the Gulf of Mexico. But the EPA ultimately was not the agency that decided whether or not these chemicals were sent into the ocean or onto the ocean's surface. That was a decision made by the Coast Guard. And so even though there was an agreement in late May that the EPA led that it would be used only rarely, as the weeks and months went by, it turned out that it was used on an almost daily basis. And that's why we have to ensure that internal bleeding inside of this ocean is monitored very closely to make sure that we understand what the ramifications are of having this unprecedented scientific experiment be conducted.
Right. Retired Admiral Thad Allen, who oversaw the federal response and is still overseeing the federal response to the oil spill, said yesterday that he was, quote, satisfied with the amount of dispersants used to clean up the disaster. He still maintains that crews use them only when needed, and he's standing by the quantity of the dispersants used. Your thoughts?
Again, they were used on an almost daily basis. They were used, even though the EPA said that they should be used rarely, not on a daily basis. And my concern is that they were used in greater quantities than even the government indicated that BP should be permitted to use them. So all of this just creates a warning sign that we should be monitoring very carefully this now underwater toxic stew that was created by shooting these chemicals into an already toxic material, the oil which was in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, the EPA spokesman, just to get their comment in here as well, they defended the use of the dispersant, saying the agency believes it's been an essential tool in mitigating the spill's impact, preventing millions of gallons of oil from doing even more damage to sensitive marshes, wetlands, beaches, and the economy of the Gulf Coast. So I'm just wondering, can you say with any certainty that it would have been better to maybe curb the use of dispersants and deal with the crude in its, cohesive form, making its way to these wetlands, marshes, and other areas of the Gulf?
Well, the EPA said that use of dispersants, of these chemicals, underwater, that is shooting it at the oil as it was coming right out of the well, was 5 times more effective than spraying it onto the ocean surface, which is why, in terms of using dispersants on the ocean surface, the EPA said that there should be a much more conservative use of these chemicals. You have to divide the question between dispersants under the water and dispersants on the surface of the water. The surface use of them sets up worker exposure, and it also creates risks that were greater than that which were being created by using them under the water. So it's two different questions, and on the question of surface use, the EPA said that it should be used only rarely. I'm using the words of the EPA.
No, I understand your concerns, and I know that many other people have them as well. You know, now we've seen some of the waters opened up to commercial fishing as well as recreational fishing. We've seen some of these beaches open. Do you feel confident that we know just how safe it is not only to eat the wildlife and seafood out of those waters, but also just to be in them?
Well, again, one of the concerns of the EPA was that because these are toxic materials that were sent into the ocean, that there has to be very careful inspection of all of the marine life if it is going to be consumed by human beings. And so the FDA and the EPA, NOAA, they have constructed a very strong monitoring system, and as they clear each area, then I think we should have some confidence. But at the same time, we should understand that vast areas are still suffering from this internal bleeding of the toxic chemicals and oil that have been put into the ocean by BP.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll get some more answers about that, and we'll be working with scientists to try to figure out exactly what the long-term impact is, because it still is, as you said, pretty much unknown at this point. Congressman Ed Markey of Massachusetts, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on.